Reno, give me a countdown.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll give you one right now. Okay,
Give it to me.
Steve, you're go.
What do you got?
In 3, 2.
Welcome to the NEKO ALPHA show, episode number 2. I'm one of your hosts, Steve.
And I am Reno.
And Neil here.
So we are coming from central Tokyo. And as my longtime business partner, Reno, aka Sociotech, likes to say, it's the most populous metro in the world in human history, actually. Is that true?
Indeed it is. Indeed it is. Not the largest, but is the most populous, second largest. There's a ton of people here. It's very dense. And it's fascinating to just realize that every once and again, that I live in the largest city, effectively, by population in all of human history. And it's a lovely place to live.
It is a lovely place. And with this show, we like to talk, it's only the second time, but what we want to be doing is talking about alpha, things that are happening in Japan, happening in the space, the NFT space, with Japanese influence, or with, with things that people are doing that have some kind of resonance here. And there's such an outsized influence by the culture and by what's happening here in the NFT space and in art in general. And two of the projects we're going to talk about today are good examples of those. And one is another one that will be started and will be happening with an artist who has made his own really big personal impact on the world. So what are those projects?
Yeah, so we'll jump right in. As Steve said, it could be something homegrown. The first one is, and it could be projects that are heavily influenced that aren't necessarily coming straight out of Japan. But the first one we're going to talk about is murakami.flowers. And this is, of course, Takashi Murakami, who's a globally known artist. Would you guys say he is the most famous or known globally artist from Japan?
He's certainly up there.
Yeah, I mean, there's Miyazaki and stuff like that, but Miyazaki's almost like an institution rather than an individual artist. I don't know, maybe that's my take on it anyway.
For me as well. I mean, he really I think made a big impact with the Roppongi Hills here in Tokyo. He did a lot of the promotional art, and from my understanding, he was the guy who did the Circles logo for the development. So, I mean, big influence there. He's done a lot of collabs. One of them was the Louis Vuitton collab, and the Japanese girls walking around Tokyo with the Murakami Louis Vuitton bags was everywhere. So, he's had a big influence here as well as overseas.
So Murakami.flowers is the project he first started teasing almost a year ago, right? It was so he started putting something up on OpenSea and then quickly changed his mind and decided he needed to do his get a few more pieces in place. And so that's been happening. And recently he was saying that it would be dropping in February. But last week, he mentioned that in his newsletter that he would be taking a bit more time to get all the pieces in place, and that he wasn't going to make the February mint. Said we were aiming to release in February, but at this rate, it looks like that won't be possible. I thank you for your patience for a little while longer. So let's have a look at what this project is. So here I've switched to his Instagram. It's interesting. He's got no Discord. There's stuff happening on Twitter, but the most active place is really Instagram. And so he decided to tell about the project on Instagram. So here's some. You can see some of these examples. We've got like a Karate Kid, Flower, William Tell, another one there, and then above that we've got over here we've got the Tiger, Year of the Tiger flower, and then I like this one in the middle here, the blue one, the self-portrait Murakami. he decided to make, well, basically tell about his roadmap and put it all on a bunch of series of Instagram posts. So he's like, here, let me tell you about what I think about NFTs. And this is like his key point. It's just art, right? So he's an artist and the NFTs are the art. He has a few comments on what it's not. But he says, Murakami Flower NFT is art, pure and simple.
He's very much like, he's coming from, he mentioned in one of his videos as well, like he's almost 60 years old. But he's trying to get involved in this. So he's coming from that, you know, the art world, the art market perspective, and getting into this, which is very admirable, you know, to take that step. But it seems like maybe now that he's stepped in a little bit, he's getting a little, I don't know, like maybe feeling a little overwhelmed by it, perhaps.
Well, I think, yeah, maybe, but also, I mean, I think he's really jumping in and trying to understand like what's different about NFTs. Like instead of just making something and going, okay, now let's put that on an NFT. Even though what he's going to end up with is, you know, just an art NFT and you know, no utility. The utility is the art. On the other hand, he's also trying to understand the medium and decide what he wants to do with it. So
yeah,
I like that.
He could come back around with, you know, I suppose he could come back around. Someone could convince him, or he could realize himself that a certain utility could be plugged into it. Maybe he'll come back around to that.
I kind of doubt it. If you look at the way he's talking, he's pretty emphatic about this point that it's, you know, he's putting out some art. But on the other hand, he's saying this project is the art. This project is just art, but he's also collaborating, like he's doing the collaboration with Artifact.
Yeah.
The Clone X stuff. And he's got several other ideas about sort of bring the art to real life. So he does a little video explanation here too about his thinking. One of the interesting point that in that video that I caught was he said, my weak point is I'm Japanese. The art world is basically run by Western countries. So that's sort of like tells you a bit about his take on that.
Neil, if I may, on that point, you know, as I mentioned earlier, there's such an outsized influence with Japanese art around the world and with NFTs. From his perspective, he believes, you know, well, I'm only Japanese or whatever. I'm doing it, you know, from this perspective. But, you know, I think that's the point of view when you're here and looking out. There's sort of this this feeling that so much of what's happening is being run by the West. That said, you know, this artist is one of the most influential so far in the NFT space. This Clone X, you know, Artifact collaboration was one of the biggest projects of the space so far. So as an artist, he's had an outsized effect on what's happening. So, you know, good to have that perspective, although he's got the perspective that, you know, he's trying to make something happen within this Western, you know, influenced or Western dominated space, but actually he's had a very big impact so far personally.
Yeah. You know, this is kind of it's a very key point for where we're coming from with our project. So it's probably worth talking about, but this, you know, I think it would be true for other, you know, many other countries as well. Like that there's if you look at art or business, that there's certain countries and certain parts of the world that are dominating, and that it's very hard to sort of play on the stage. Of course, then some individuals that are always going to stand out. And if you think about Japan, like not just art but business as well, there's always a bit of a play there where there's so many things that come out of Japan in terms of, like, look at consumer electronics, art, you know, anime, all of those things that have such a huge influence, as you were saying. But at the same time, so many companies are hesitant to really play on the world stage and default to putting like 90% or 99% of their effort into the domestic market and just making everything about the domestic market in 100% Japanese. So on the one hand, it's like we want to be playing on the world stage, but on the other hand, there's both the like sort of lack of confidence to do so, but also the lack of effort to really get some professional communications and just get out there and do it. So
yeah, so he's a good example. He's somebody who, regardless of what he says, is trying to play on the world stage and has the confidence to do that. And I think a lot of artists do not have that confidence and maybe do not have that ambition to be on the world stage. But for us, I think being here, we want to try to help uncover those artists and maybe help to bridge that gap and help their communication. So I'm really excited to be a part of that with you guys.
Yeah, bridge that gap, up the game, get a thing happening.
Yep.
So so here we are looking at that, and so here's he's showing the octopus. He says property octopus. I think he means this is the octopus trait. So he's shown a few examples of the octopus. Talks a little bit about the importance of 108, which is really the 108. The number 108 has a deep history in Buddhism, and the 108 earthly desires. For example, every New Year's Eve. So in many countries, New Year's Eve is a night to party. In Japan, it's a night to stay home and or go to the temple and listen to the temple bell be rung 108 times. So I think he's planning on dropping 108 times 108, which is 11,664, is probably going to be the number of NFTs in this drop. And
Neil, as someone who's familiar with Buddhism very much so, have you pursued all 108 human desires?
I'm working on it. Yeah.
I don't know if I've pursued that many, maybe like 15 or something.
I don't think you're counting correctly. So
I wouldn't mind seeing a list of those. See what they are.
yeah, like a checklist.
A checklist, yeah.
Doesn't this pixel art just look like, I mean, this is so dope.
Yeah, it's amazing. I want to, if I can't mint one, I'd love to get one of these or a couple of these. Really cool.
So he talks a little bit about super flat, which is his concept of art that goes back several decades.
Yeah, and did you guys get your heads around that? Really? It's like 50% sort of for me that I haven't consumed perhaps enough of his work or the work that he references to make the point about super flat as a thing. But so it's hard for me to articulate it. But what about you guys? Do you have your heads around it?
I do not. To be honest, I will check up on it some more. But he wrote a whole book about it, and I was just going through the Instagram stuff, and he kind of lost me when he got into sort of the post-war sort of history of Japan as a defeated country. I find it, I kind of like lost the logic trail there, but I'll look at it some more.
It's very much, it's not just about aesthetics. It's about, there's culture woven into the culture and history and all that woven into his concept. So if anyone really has their head around it, leave us a comment and, like you're explaining it to a 4-year-old, and maybe that'll be helpful for us and the community at large.
Well, I'm sure we'll have Mr. Murakami on this show pretty soon, so we'll get him to explain it.
And for those who saw the Instagram there and want to go check it out, his video statement that Neil was referencing is in English. He speaks English quite well. So for those listening who are not Japanese speakers, don't worry about that. It's very accessible. So go have a watch, have a listen. And I think that was the first time I've really seen him speak at length, and just seems like a down-to-earth sort of contemplative dude. So it's worth getting his perspective on art and just where he's at with this project.
Yeah, he's talking about a portable game with an LCD monitor. So it's actually sounds like a piece of hardware coming out in December 2022. And he also talks about reviving the work on his movie that he had been working on several years ago. And here's his thoughts on starting a Discord. I know you want it. The T-shirt.
Yeah, and then on the back, you can, if you're looking at Instagram, you can see his sort of statement, the second image in that post about just, and he's right, like he's got such a massive following already. If he did open a Discord, he would be immediately just bombarded, and it would really be, I mean, unless you had a really, really solid team, like immediately waiting to manage that, I could see it being a real a real hassle.
Well, he's going to have to figure out how to do the whitelist, but yeah, I mean, there's other ways to do it. So, I mean, I kind of like that, the honesty of that, just saying, I'm not ready to deal with that.
Yeah, and it is a barrier to a certain degree to getting the masses into this space. Discord is so important to a lot of these projects, but it is not an extremely user-friendly thing to just jump into if you've never used it before. So maybe his efforts, he's big enough, maybe whatever he ends up doing or whatever he tries to do, maybe it could spawn an alternative means of engaging with community with these projects. And I don't think that could be just Instagram or just Twitter, but we'll see. I don't know. I don't really have any speculation on what that could be, but it would be interesting if he alone helped sort of spur alternative means of community engagement.
Yeah, we'll see what they come up with. But I mean, this is a good point, right? Because Discord is, I mean, in a way, it is one of the barriers. If you think of like the whole NFT collection scene, everyone has a Discord, and then there's all this, there are other language channels, but they're typically as a sort of like aside, and the main thing is all in English, right? So this is, again, comes back to that sort of view in Japan. It's very hard to jump into something where there's English messages just flying through. Like there's some really active communities in Japan. Ninja DAO would probably be like the biggest Discord one, but there's a really big Telegram group like Crypto Kudasai. Those are both both of those have like probably 15,000 members each, and they're super active, and they're basically all in Japanese. So it's not like you couldn't have the same thing here, but it's kind of a big ask to try to do it all in English and have all the main stuff be in English.
Yeah. And it's a big ask to accommodate Japanese. Japanese speakers are less than 2% of human population. So it certainly is a barrier. Even the NFT Asia Discord, which is quite large, has a Japan section, and it's all in English. So there's barriers. There's barriers up. So maybe he'll figure something out that pulls those barriers down a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Neil.
I was just going to say, he can just keep running with the Instagram, because if you read this, you feel like you're getting his like voice. Yeah, and he's making direct statements, to the camera, like this is who this dude is. But so to sum up the alpha on this gentleman and his project, how would we put that into a single sentence? Delayed.
Yeah.
Hey guys, let me just also kind of make a comment here, which I don't think should be missed or passed over. There's so much of the image of Japan. I think it's Tokyo. It's the sleek, the neon, the cool, the hip, the anime, the manga, and certainly Murakami has his own sleek and cool, animations and art. But I think there was something purposeful with how with the background that he has here, the way he's modeled for, or just posed for this picture, is a very decidedly unglamorous background. And I think there might be more to this project than just the art. I think it's maybe showing some of the texture, some of the other views of what Japan is. It's not all glamorous. It's not all sleek and neon and cool and hip. And I think that's part of what, we live here. We see it. There are many facets to life here and to the culture. And I think we're going to hopefully uncover some of that and be able to share that as we go forward. But I think there's something very purposeful with how he's showing himself here. We'll see how it goes. We'll see what he comes up with.
Yeah. Okay. So our next topic is Azuki. So Azuki, of course, everybody knows that project. It's huge, an amazing high floor, and it's very popular. But the alpha is that Azuki number 40. Here we go. You can see it right here. Is going to be fractionalized. They've named it Bobu, and there's Bobu, and they're going to fractionalize it into 20,000 1155 NFTs. Anybody can buy them. Here's the date, the 6th of March. Supply 20,000, price 0.01 ETH. Sake infinite. I don't know what that means, but
keep drinking, maybe.
Anyhow, it's pretty cool to sort of expand in that way, to take one of their NFTs, fractionalize it, and have a chance to sort of expand the community in an affordable way. But the Azuki's an interesting project, going back to what I think you were saying, Steve, about the sort of the influence. Obviously, this is like, we don't know, the team's not docs, so we don't know everything about them, but we know they're in LA. That's what they say, and obviously love anime. I've seen both the Japanese channel on Azuki and also some of the Japanese NFT groups in Japan discussing Azuki, and with basically really positive comments about how true to anime it is.
So here's an example of looking at Japanese art as anime and presenting it that way. Certainly that's part of it. That's not the whole picture, the whole story. But it is interesting to see the positive feedback here domestically on this. And I guess also it's cool to see the new ideas about how to extend a project to more people. And that's really the essence of this Bobu, I guess, sub-project, this Bobu initiative.
Yeah.
So many people, this project now with its floor price is inaccessible to a lot of people, but I think a lot of people would love to be part of it, like the art, like what they're doing. Now by fractionalizing one of the pieces, a lot of people can get into it. And I personally don't have an Azuki. I like the project, and for that to have 1/20,000th of one, I think would be very accessible. I'd love to jump into it, and would love to see other projects do things like that. There's only so many things you can jump into, so much ETH that you have in your wallet. So I think this would be a great way to extend it to more people, let more people be part of the ecosystem, and get more excitement happening. So it's cool.
Yeah, they're basically saying that. So the people holding the Bobu that's their so fractionalized IP governance. So that's going to be the over a core character in the Azuki universe. So we don't really know what that means, but they got something in mind. And there's one more thing I'd like to say about Azuki, which is also pretty cool, is that they worked hard to come up with an improvement on the minting process. So they called it ERC 721A, I think I'd heard that term before. They're saying they definitely developed this contract. There may have been some discussion along those lines, and maybe some other people doing something similar. But what they did, which is really cool, is they open sourced what they did and said, hey, everybody, go ahead, just use it. So there's a link to GitHub here. They put up an ERC721A.org website, and here's the GitHub. You can see already like a list of projects that have been using it. We're probably going to end up, the NEKO Alliance is probably going to be on this list too, because we've grabbed it and have we had already made some good gas improvements, but the key one that Azuki came up with is the way to mint, so that if you're minting multiples, the gas is the same for no matter how many you mint. Pretty cool. So we're I think we may end up on this list too. I was just
going to say one thing. It'll be cool to see, how different projects decide to try to extend themselves to more people, and be more accessible to more people and let more people enter their ecosystems. Because, right now it's still early. There's still not a lot of people collecting and wanting to be a part of it. But as the number of people grows, and as people who are already in it want to get into more of these popular projects, there's going to be a lot of need for people to for these projects to extend themselves. So it'd be cool to see what happens, what different projects do. And I know we've talked about a few different ideas for the future, but
it seems definitely very, very relevant for like affinity projects with they want to achieve like a high level of utility with their NFTs, with ownership. If it's an affinity project, like for Japan, for example, well, there's a lot of people on planet Earth interested in Japan. So how can you maximize the size of your community, involvement, things like that. So it is, just to echo what you said, even for our project, we've thought a lot about this. Like, how can we move into a place and a way of doing things that really maximizes the number of people who can be involved. So that's the alpha on Azuki, right? Is a really large, well-known project that is actively taking steps to include more people in their community beyond the initial mint, or so on and so forth.
All right, moving along.
Okay, our last piece of alpha, just a quick note on the Shibuya project, and the Shibuya platform and the White Rabbit, the Shiro Usagi project. This is a project from Pplpleaser, and the NFT. The key point here is the NFT just sold out, but it's an interesting project with a Japan twist to it. Of course, Shibuya is a ward here in Tokyo. And the main graphic you see on the screen there right now is a representation of the famous Shibuya intersection, Shibuya crossing. If you've ever seen a video about Japan, chances are you've seen a representation of this. But it's a very cool little. You've seen it in real life. This is a representation of that. But it's a cool little animated graphic with all sorts of little screens that appear to be portals into content. I think is what that's representing. So the big point here is that it sold out pretty quickly. The NFT was the White Rabbit producer pass, which again, White Rabbit is the first project on the Shibuya platform. So it's an interesting case.
Yeah, and with this project, it's a great example of why Web3 is already and will be so powerful. What Pplpleaser is doing with this is not only creating a creative project, some kind of story that's going to be developed by creators and animated by great animators. The people who have minted or will buy the NFT, through staking it, will be able to give creative direction to the project. And we've seen this in other projects. Maybe we'll talk more about it at some point, but this participation of the audience, if you want to use that word, the participation as opposed to just consumption, is really a big theme with Web3, and it's something that we, has been the driving ethos for us with our NEKO's project. We feel like there's so many people who are interested in this the Japanese culture, interested in what's happening. With our project and with Web3, we can not only give people content to look at and to consume and think is cool. We can give people a means by which they can actually participate and do stuff with us and tell us what they want to see here. So there's a lot of ideas that we've been talking about, and I guess we'll just keep talking about those as we go forward. But yeah, this is a great example. I want to learn more about this particular project and just kind of see how it goes, see where she takes this project.
Definitely, yeah, it's an interesting example of everything you just said. All right, so that's a handful of pieces of alpha for today. And as we mentioned, in the first episode, we also wanted to include little stories about life in Japan, quick little anecdotes about things we experience here, things that are unique, that may not happen elsewhere in the world, or are particularly interesting for some reason. And the one we were thinking about today was that Steve has been in the Tokyo area for the whole time of his experience in Japan, but Neil and I were both living south and west of Tokyo for a spell. Neil was in Hiroshima for how many years, Neil?
8.5.
8.5, yeah. And of the of the non-contiguous 13 or so years I've spent in Japan, about 3.5 of those I spent down in Kumamoto, which is the second largest city on the southernmost major island of Japan. But we were talking about that the other day, and I mentioned Kumamoto, and Neil asked where and what and stuff. And I was like, well, I lived in the city, but then I also lived out in the sticks a little bit in a small town called Kikuchi. And Neil had some coincidental experience out there. There's a place called Ryumon Dam, which you can drive up to and sort of look out, over the valley, and it's quite a beautiful view. For me, my experience in that particular area was I had a relationship both start and end at Ryumon Dam overlooking the valley. So that was a significant thing for me. But Neil, you also had a little trip around that area.
Yeah. So when you brought up Kumamoto, was the first thing I thought of was the times I went down there, and it was exactly at Ryumon Dam, but up the hill, so to speak. It's on the very top of the mountain is a Zen temple there that I stayed a number of times for a little bit of Zen training. And how I ended up there the first time is I was living in Hiroshima. It was still my early days in Japan. My Japanese wasn't that good. And I was regularly going to do Zen sitting or Zazen at a temple in Hiroshima. And one day they said, we're going on a trip to Kyushu. And so I signed up, and I was like, in my 20s, and I was there with a bunch of the Zen priest and a bunch of folks that were mostly in their like 60s and 70s. And then we went down, we drove all the way down, and they said, we're going to this temple. And I thought we were going to be stopping for a bunch of time at the temple and doing some meditation or something. And turned out that they were just planning to stop by and say hi to the Zen master there and have tea, and then move on to go stay at a hot springs. So after we had the tea, I'm like, well, now what? Where's the part where we go and do some meditation? And they're like, oh no, we're just having tea. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding. We came to this temple. This temple is like right on the top of the mountain. It's 500-year-old temple. The Hondo is still like the original temple, and it's a working temple. It's not like a tourist attraction type thing. And it's still used as one of the Sotoshu training temples, right? And so they were like, well, we got time, so if you want to, you can go sit there for a while. And I was like, well, there's no way I'm passing up this chance, so I'm going in there to sit for a little while. And so I did. But I think what happened after that, they're like, they all kind of felt like, oh well, I don't know if it's guilty or just like, yeah, well, the foreigner went in there to go sit. Zazen. So I guess we probably should too, since we came down here. And I could, in Zen meditation, you kind of sit and your eyes are like focused down on the tatami, and you don't really see what's going on around you. But I could hear people kind of coming in after that, one by one, and sitting down somewhere. Oh, actually, this is Soto, not Rinzai. So I was facing the wall. So you could hear people coming behind you, coming in and sitting down. And I remember after like maybe 4, 5, or 6 people came in, I heard somebody step into the room. And then I just felt like this weird feeling, like suddenly the room atmosphere had just like gone and just changed to something else. And I was like, oh, I bet that was the Zen master who just walked in. And so I kind of remembered where the footsteps ended up. And then when we finished up, I turned around and sure enough, that was him. So that's kind of my story of the first time at Shogoji, when the master walked in, the whole room, that feeling, it was just pretty intense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's good to know, and it's good to reveal that to the listeners. If you're wondering where Neil gets his calm, focused, centered demeanor, it could have something to do with this, right, Neil?
Who knows?
And my erratic, unmanageable, displeasing attitude has something to do with the fact that I don't know anything about Buddhism. Perhaps there's a connection there. But yeah, so we'll come back around with other little interesting stories from time to time. A lot of them might end up being geographical, because Japan has a significant population, but it's not that big. And 70% of Japan is uninhabitable. It's too mountainous, too rugged, too crazy. So there's only so many places you can go. But yeah, so that almost wraps it up for today. We're just gonna, just referring back to what we were talking about earlier with the Shibuya platform, sort of the alpha there, the news. The congratulations to them on their their selling out of the NFT. Is that participation being greater than consumption sort of thing is really something that we're trying to build into our project as well, and really have like a genuine community in the United NEKO Alliance of people who aren't just passively consuming in what we're trying to do with it, but actively contributing to it and playing a role and possibly in some ways for decision making of the community as a whole. And that's really something, as we're working on this project, moving forward and getting things done, it's built in to what we're trying to do as well with our project. So it's cool to see an example of that be successful. And we're going to be doing the same thing in a different way with the United NEKO Alliance. It's fun, it's complicated, and it's an interesting challenge. But it's this brand new thing. It's this brand new space, and jump into the Discord, come say hi, Twitter and Instagram as well. Get involved, and it's early days. We're still taking ideas and working things out, about how we're going to make it work, how it's all going to come together. So we're all ears to the community, and yeah, stabbing forward, off we go into the future.
We'll see you in the NEKO Dojo.
See you there.
All right, have a lovely day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Cut.